Hello and welcome back to the Pitwall Podcast. This week we're going to be going over what happened at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix on top of some outside news that is going on in Formula One. You know, season has ended, so it's time for the off-season drama to start. And
let's go.
It's off to a good start, baby. It's off to a good start.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe the season's over. I mean, but you think we're going away till next season? No, we're not. I wrote down a ton of episode ideas this morning. We're not done yet, so you want us gone.
We got some stuff coming.
You'll never get rid of us. I just want to say, just as a side note before we get started fully, that the TikTok I posted of me screaming is like exploding right now. Like it got 500 likes today so far, which is like big for us. So I don't know. I'm sure hopefully one day I listen back to this and go, 500 likes. That's nothing.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but anyway. All right, let's hit you. I'm gonna hit you with a quality in 6D. I'm gonna do it on my watch this time because I don't know why I haven't been doing that. I know, fancy. Okay, here we go.
Let's get it.
3, 2, 1. All right, so this qualifying is basically exactly the entire story of F1 this season. First of all, both Red Bulls were on the front row lockout. Then both Ferraris, then both Mercedes. Basically the exact accurate speed of all of the cars this season. Behind that, we had Lando Norris with a really great result of P7. They keep saying he's going to change his number to 7 because he keeps going 7th. Esteban Ocon was behind him. And then Sebastian Vettel in his last ever qualifying gets in the top 10, finishes 9th ahead of Danny Rick in 10th. Fernando Alonso in 11th. Yuki with an okay 12th. I mean, better than expected for AlphaTauri this season. Mick Schumacher in 13th in a bid to save his seat. In 14th, Lance Stroll, just ahead of Joe Guan Yu in 15th. K-Mag in 16th. Pierre Gasly in 17th. Bottas with a rough qualifying in 18th. Albon in 19th. And always last, Mr. Latifi in his final qualifying.
What a good way to end a quality in 60.
Dude. So, yeah, I mean, that was all the pre-race drama was just a little recap was, you know, is Checo and Max breaking up, and then they say they're good, and they seem, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, is this just PR? But to me, it seemed like they were actually good. I mean, as a Red Bull fan, would you agree that they seem to have made it up, like they'd been okay?
Yeah. I have like Max came out and like I told you this in person or over text. I was like, Max is pretty blunt about everything. Like there's not much he like covers up or anything. And he was saying we talked about it and we're good now, but all that should have happened is we should have had that talk a lot sooner.
Yeah,
and they didn't disclose what it was, but it was just something between them that needed to be covered up or figured out that finally got figured out. And all he said was it needed to be sooner, but I mean.
It couldn't have been Monaco. Honestly. It could. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it couldn't have been Monaco.
Yeah. I thought it would be honestly for a while, but then I'm like, that was probably hashed out immediately.
Maybe. Yeah. And
knowing Max, it probably was because he's like he's like very, like I said, blunt. He's gonna come up to you right after it happens. I mean, look, the clip of him and Ocon.
Yeah.
Or Ocon.
Yeah.
He immediately goes up and talks. That's like how he is with every incident. He'll immediately go and figure out what happened, why, and fix it.
Yeah. I totally agree.
In his way.
So this had to be something bigger.
That's what made me think. Yeah, that's what made me think it wasn't Monaco because they probably handled that directly after it happened.
Yeah. Well, let's just go ahead and get into the teams. I want to cover the news as we go with the teams because I feel like that's relevant. Yeah. So I'm just going to start with Mercedes because I feel like it feels like a good place to start. So obviously last race I was very excited. 1-2 maximum points. This weekend was not one of those. Mercedes had a pretty poor weekend. It was very disappointing. It was going to be a stretch to get P2 anyway. Lewis had his first mechanical DNF of the season that it was really disappointing. It was the first mechanical DNF for Mercedes for the whole year, which, considering how the lack of pace, at least showed their reliability. So, they were able to pick up P3 basically because of that and fight for P2 for most of the season. I'll say this right at the beginning of the race. I believe it was the first lap. Carlos Sainz shoved Lewis off of the track. In my opinion, And then Lewis had to give the place back, and I want to know what your thoughts are on this. I know that I can't even remember how it went down, but I believe Lewis got away with it before the year before, and
he did. That was my point. I knew we were gonna talk about this, but yeah, he did it last year to Max.
But he didn't he didn't have to give the place back, and
no, he got away with it.
Yeah, and it would have been. It's in the same situation. I believe it was Lewis where Sainz was. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think Lewis was in the place where he shoved the Max off. And then what they should have done is made Lewis give back the position then. But this year, you see what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah.
He did go off the track last year, so it's different. It's not as point for point.
It's not. It's not an exact replica. It is a little bit different. So,
but what did you think? Did you think it was Lewis's fault, or did you think it was a racing incident?
Okay, I honestly thought Sainz had the racing line. After a while, I watched it a few times. I knew we were going to talk about this, and I wanted to have my point ahead of time. I think Sainz had the racing line, but I still think it was just. It's first lap. Everybody's fighting for position. So it's kind of a racing incident, in my opinion.
It was a little too aggressive, I think. And I think
Yeah.
And I think, to be fair, I think Lewis's move last year was a little too aggressive. Max is known for his aggressive race style, so I think that had something to do with it last year. But
yeah,
Sainz surprised me because Sainz is like kind of a passive driver, I would almost say. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, he's obviously a Grand Prix winner. But I was just surprised and kind of frustrated. So anyway, Lewis gets shoved off, and then he eventually DNFs. They claim it's not because of that. It was some hydraulic leak. I don't know how they can say for sure that wasn't it, but because I thought for sure that was why. But Lewis, I don't know if you noticed this, and this just shows like Max is the same way, and like all the tip-top great drivers are like this. The second there is a 0.01% difference in how the car is running, they notice. And Lewis in lap 8 was saying, there's something wrong with the car. And they're like, no, it's fine. He's like, there's something wrong with the car. And lo and behold, 40 laps later, he has to DNF.
Yeah.
So I always find that impressive. Max does that too. He's like, there was a slight shift glitch between 2 and 3. And I'm sure it was just like, instead of click, it was like click. Like, just like click, you know.
Just a little tiny,
It's very impressive to me. So
little tiny difference, but
anyway, bad day. Russell had a slow stop that took 5.2 seconds, which caused them to unsafe release him and also get him a 5-second penalty. So, so he finished in the top 5. And because of that, I'm just going to go straight into Ferrari real quick. I already talked about Sainz. He was public enemy number 1 during this race for me, but so because of that, I mean, Leclerc ends up, Sainz ends up in P5. Sainz ends up in P4, I believe. Yes, sorry,
yeah,
P4.
He ended up P4.
Yeah, right ahead of Russell, just to make matters worse. And I think the biggest conversation in this, and I want to bring this in, is obviously. Okay, Ferrari gets P2 in the championship, but another significant thing was that Leclerc was able to pass Checo and stay ahead of Checo. And I have thoughts about how the race started with Red Bull, and I want to throw it to you here in just a second. But here's what I'll say. There was a moment in the race, and I'm sure everybody remembers because this is where Checo earned his Mexican Minister of Defense line, where last year in Abu Dhabi, and by last year I mean 2021. He held up Lewis for probably 5 to 8 seconds worth of time. It was a pretty insane thing, and they have done the math now since then. And Lewis cost Checo enough time that it ended up costing him P2 in the championship because Checo finished, I believe it was 1.2 seconds behind Leclerc. And Lewis held him up for 1.4 or something like that. That's rounded, but not rounded in a way that it would make a difference. So I mean, obviously passing is a different thing, but I mean, Lewis got his revenge before he went out. So I'm sure that wasn't like intentional. He was just trying to race him. But It was very interesting. So how did you feel about Red Bull's race? Because, I mean, obviously they came in gunning for P2, their first 1-2 in the championship, and they didn't get it. But obviously Max won another race.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about it?
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, obviously I was very sad that Checo didn't get the 1-2, or we didn't get the 1-2 for the championship. I was really hoping. I honestly had a feeling it wasn't going to happen this week, just because I felt like Leclerc was going to do everything he could to get that.
Right.
Because he drove really well this race.
Yeah.
And, but I'm still happy because, like, Max is still, he's extending a record, for the most victories in a season. So I'm happy about that because, his stats are already crazy for the season.
Insane. Truly insane.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks, man, for Checo, but I'm,
so
I can't say that, like, as coming from this year, I want to say, next year they'll have another shot, but like, I've just got this gut wrenching feeling that next year is going to be so competitive. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like all these teams are like gonna
they're gunning for it.
Like, I mean, Ferrari could have had like a really good chance this year with their car, and like you were saying, like if Lewis was in a Ferrari this year, he probably would have won.
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, Max drove out of his mind. I mean, when you compare his numbers to,
or would have definitely been competitive. I feel like, because like the Ferrari, if you remember when we first started doing this, like within our first few podcast episodes, Ferrari was like the fastest on track.
Yeah,
it's just their decision making was what cost them so many races.
Yeah, I mean, Red Bull had the straight line speed advantage, but overall, I mean, they still qualified great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I want to say. I have a lot to talk about Ferrari too. So at the beginning of the race, I don't know if you remember, but obviously Max is on pole. There was a moment, and this is very subjective, and it's hard to really like blame. I'm not blaming Max for anything, and I want to be clear too that Max, and I actually mistyped this to you. If Max had given up the position last week, it actually wouldn't have been enough. He would have been 1 point short. In Brazil, 1 point short, and even if they had tied, Leclerc would have had the tiebreaker. So it's not Max's fault, at least in that one race. But this is interesting that I thought, rewatching some of the highlights, I feel like Max could have let Checo overtake for first position in that race at the very beginning, and maybe they would have had a chance. That is my one takeaway. Again, very subjective. I mean, it's hard to say, hey, give up first place, Max. But I mean, there was a moment where they were fighting, and if Max had let off just a little bit, he would have been safe from Leclerc and whoever else was behind him. I think Lando was behind him at the beginning. And the other thing is just like you never know,
Yeah, that's fair.
But I'm not blaming Max. I'm not saying like we were last week.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to think about, and it sucks. And I know that Checo was really gunning for it. And honestly, I was kind of hoping Checo would get it too. So mostly because making fun of Ferrari is very fun. And speaking of Ferrari, obviously they pulled off this 1-2. Their overall standings, I mean, they finished second and fifth in the championship. So they finished behind Russell, which is kind of surprising. I had forgotten that if both the drivers had wrecked, Russell actually would have gotten P2 in the championship, which is kind of nuts, considering
if Leclerc and Checo?
Yeah. I think he would have had to win the race, so it would have had to been all three. But still, the fact that he was even semi in contention was kind of blowing my mind.
It's crazy.
So let's talk about the news. So Mattia Binotto, luckily we waited to record this at the perfect time. He's officially out. He officially resigned this morning or last night, maybe. I don't know. Time difference. And I think it's a good call. I think that's, I'm sure there was some forcing out that happened, but I'm glad that they
for sure
let him leave respectfully. So
yeah,
I think it's the right call. He's been there a while. I think they need new leadership. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
You have to start making changes.
Yeah. Because, I mean, there are definitely some things he said throughout the year that were just blatantly not correct.
Yeah.
So
I think their biggest problem they're facing is I'm hearing some of their lead engineers are going to leave over this too, and that is a problem. Now,
Wow.
if it's the engineers that are the reliability fault, that's a whole different thing. But it's hard. That's tough. That's a tough loss for them, especially with their car that was that good. So, I don't really want to talk too much about next year in this podcast because we're going to have a whole lot of that over the next.
That's fair.
Over the next while, but it's going to be tough for them with Mercedes behind their back and Red Bull obviously coming in, starting with a great car. So I think you're right that it is going to be competitive because Ferrari and Mercedes are going to fix their own issues and Red Bull are going to be stifled a little bit by their wind tunnel stuff. And I think all of that, the first race is just going to be awesome. So
I really hope so.
All right, so how about you give me one of your teams now that we've kind of covered the top 3 teams?
All right, yeah. So let's talk about Haas real quick. Let's just knock this out of the way.
Oh, like they did to Latifi? No.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna start calling this Haas positions because they finished P16 and P17 once again for this season, and I feel like that is just like. It's like Lando Norris finishing P6 and P7. It's like always going to happen. So, like I said, they finished P16 and P17 with Mick finishing ahead in his final race in F1 as of now. But there are rumors, speculation that he will be Mercedes reserve driver.
And it's basically the only news left that's still like floating out there right now.
Yeah, everything else has pretty much been confirmed that we're going to talk about. Oh, yeah. I mean, should I talk about?
Yeah, talk about the driver. Yeah.
So Nico Hulkenberg is officially the new Haas driver, and I still don't know how I feel about it.
Me neither.
Because, like, what did Nico Hulkenberg ever do in Formula One?
And no podiums. That's for
With
sure.
a Renault, he had 0 wins, 0 podiums, and 1 pole.
Oh, he had a pole. I didn't know that.
He had 1 pole, and that was in the rain, if that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. They're going for experience. I mean, maybe he's consistent. I mean, I've watched him. I watched him when he still had a seat when I started watching. Mm-hmm. He always seemed like not the friendliest of guys, and I hope him and K-Mag get along because I know there was some drama back in the day, but they say they're fine. It's a choice. They now have one of the most experienced drivers in terms of race starts and laps and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of like Haas. This is always just kind of like, we'll find out. But yeah, I mean, I hope Mick gets some sort of reserve role. I feel like reserve at Mercedes is a good spot for him.
I think it's gonna happen. I mean, there was what Toto like publicly said, like,
we're interested.
Yeah, he was like, we've always, we've always got his back. So I'm pretty sure he's gonna end up there. Like at least like a 95% chance he's gonna end up there.
Yeah, and also I already kind of said it, but will you tell us what Mick did in the race?
Oh wait, what did you say?
When Mick and Latifi?
Oh, like took Latifi out?
Yeah. It was beautiful, wasn't it? They did their slide move, and they were going.
It was the double.
Yeah, they were perfectly in sync. It was crazy. I was like,
double spin. Yeah,
it was like something out of F122. It was like, what?
Yeah, it's like they were celebrating early for the season being over.
Oh, speaking of which, do you remember Mick going and doing the donuts, and they were like, we can't.
Oh man,
we can't.
Yeah. That was so sad, dude, because he sounded heartbroken on the radio.
Well, I found out why. At first, I thought that he just wasn't supposed to, but I didn't realize that he wasn't in the right area to do them. They have like designated zones, but like they should have just let the guy. What? Oh, you got to give him a penalty. Oh no.
Yeah. When's that gonna come out?
Also,
or, come into place.
Speaking of which, I don't know how they figured this out, but Tsunoda and Mick Schumacher tied on points standings overall for the season. But they put Mick over Tsunoda. I don't really know how they do that math. I guess overall average race finish or something. But
maybe
that's interesting.
It was like when he got points, maybe he was in a higher position.
Something
like on average.
I
don't know.
I was surprised by that. So
Okay.
Speaking of Yuki, how is AlphaTauri's race?
Kind of lackluster. Just another AlphaTauri race. Um, Yuki did finish just out of the points, P11. He normally averages around like P12 to P14 or 15. So,
Right.
that was pretty well. Sometimes that was pretty good from him. Obviously didn't get points, but Pierre with his official last race drive of AlphaTauri finished P14. So wasn't too great from him. He said this race doesn't reflect his time at AlphaTauri. I'm sad to see him leave. Because obviously I've always been, since I started watching, been a Pierre Gasly fan. But I am excited to see how he does at Alpine. And
Nick DeVries is a great driver. I mean, you guys.
Yeah, and I was about to say we're also like still getting a good driver that maybe with two young guys that can do a lot better next year.
Yuki's got to step up now. He's had his years.
I agree.
Yeah, Yuki's got to.
I think Nick DeVries is going to end up team leader by the end of the season.
Oh, totally. He's already more responsible.
If not already.
Yeah. I think they're contractually equal, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, though.
I give it a few races, and DeVries, if Yuki doesn't perform next year, that he'll be like the number one for AlphaTauri. They'll be focusing on him a lot more.
Yeah, I bet. And speaking of Alpine, Alpine had a fantastic weekend, not in race result, but they finished, Alonso DNF'd again, which really just sucked for them. But, they ended up P4 in the constructor standings, which is a huge win for them. Beating McLaren. I mean, that's a tough. McLaren was P3 a couple years ago, as now P5. That's tough, but they had a great race for that, and Ocon had a great finish. I think him in the top 10 is good with their car, and 7 is just fantastic. So, Lando finished ahead of him, but I think it didn't matter in the end. So there's no way they were going to pick up the 19 points.
Yeah.
And you could talk about McLaren, but I just want to say that I thought of an interesting point, which is, obviously Danny Rick, we didn't talk about that either, but, obviously Danny Rick, his last drive, 2 drives with McLaren, barely scores points, gets a 9th in this race, but I believe he cost them more money than his contract in just that one wreck last week in Brazil. Because it's like $12 or $15 million difference, and his contract is somewhere in that range. I can't remember exactly, or was. Yeah. So that's a big L for Danny, like to cause that wreck that he did last week. So and take his car out of the race. So anyway, tell us about. So how did you feel about McLaren this weekend?
Like I talked about earlier, Lando. You said this earlier. I literally have it also in my notes that Lando Norris finished P6 like he has throughout the remainder or the entire season. He's very consistent. So I'm hoping that he's eventually going to get his race win next season.
It's coming.
I really want to see that.
It's coming.
Because he deserves it. He's been through thick and thin with McLaren this year, like trying to get them the points they need. So very, very excited for Lando. And Daniel, like you said, he finished P9 for this race. So, got points on this final race. Bravo to him. But like you said, they finished behind Alpine. So hopefully next year they'll be a little bit more competitive with their drivers. So
I want to touch on something here. So I believe that part of McLaren's problem was actually Mercedes' fault in their engine this year.
Really?
I believe that I said this a lot. This is almost like, it's not an unfounded, I wouldn't even say a conspiracy. It's just like I'm not an engineer, so I have very brief knowledge on this, but from what I understand, the 10% fuel change to eco fuel, I've said this before, really affected Mercedes. And obviously their engine's custom built to their car, and they give that same engine to McLaren. So obviously Mercedes is starting with a reliable engine, but not as fast. I think they were starting with that. I mean, the fact that McLaren was in a fight for it at all after their first couple races, which were terrible, was good, but at the same time, while that argument is sound, you don't see it translating to AlphaTauri, who Red Bull had by far the fastest car. And if there is ever proof that they are not sister teams anymore, or they are sister teams now, not junior team, this is it. Because it's just been a terrible year that's just the only thing I can think of the word to describe it. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
Pierre Gasly, in my opinion, is one of the, I don't know, he's in the top 10 on the grid, but he's a very underrated driver, I feel like.
Yeah.
And him not delivering Alpine obviously believes it too. Is not his fault.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. And Alpine obviously got the win in P4. McLaren, rough time. And we talked about Williams. Williams, their biggest win of the weekend was that Logan Sargent got enough points to become their driver next year. So we have an American back on the grid. I'm very excited about that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I hope I end up liking him as a person, because I really want to pull for him. Like not my number one driver, but I want him to do well. So I'd like to see him and Albon pulling P12s and 13s at least every race, close to points, especially when we see what DeVries can do in a car like that. I hope they can do something similar. Latifi didn't cause his own wreck this time. So there's that.
Wasn't his fault.
Good job. He's still DNF'd though. And and he's gone for good. There's no rumors. There's nothing. I think he's just done. But that's okay. Yeah. And as much as we make fun of him, he is a good guy, and from what we can tell, and everybody says that. So he will be missed. Final pieces of news to go over. Well, first,
actually, I have one thing to say first.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So well, I forgot to mention this as we were talking about Alpine. But did you see what Ocon said about Fernando Alonso?
No. I know there was some beef, I think.
Yeah. So he basically said that Alonso did nothing for the team this year. Whereas he didn't show up to PR events, he didn't do any of the sim testing. He said pretty much 98% of the work was put on what's his name?
Ocon.
Yeah, Ocon.
Interesting.
So I'm pretty sure they're glad to be splitting ways. Both of them are probably glad to be apart from each other.
There's some bad blood in that team. I mean, Piastri, when you're in their driver school and you're trying to leave, when you have the opportunity to get a major seat, he risked his whole career to get out of there. That's suspicious to me. And this
man broke F1 Twitter for a few days.
Yeah, Alonso, I don't know what to think about him. He's always talking smack. He's a world champion.
He did the same thing at McLaren.
I know.
He tried to, or not did the same thing, but he was he acted like he was the boss.
Yeah.
And I feel like he had that mentality at Alpine, where he just thinks, oh, well, I'm the big guy here. I don't have to do this. Just send the other guy.
Everybody's talking big stuff about Aston Martin. And, obviously this is Vettel's final race. We did our tribute episode to him. Really sad. It was kind of hard to watch. Especially, I'm so glad they gave him an interview and they really focused on him. They totally messed up his tire strategy. Totally screwed up his whole strategy after his fantastic qualifying. But Vettel and Stroll both got in the points, so there's a lot of hype around this team that Alonso's going to. I mean, I don't love Stroll, but he delivers consistency. I'll give him that. And like I've mentioned many times, they've poached a lot of people. Can they deliver? I mean, they've definitely gotten better over the season. I mean, they've finished in the points multiple races. Again, my theory about the Mercedes engine not being the best engine this year. Them working through that. If Mercedes figures out their crap with their engine, I mean, who knows? I mean, they could be a contender. I don't know. So But yeah, we'll see if Alonso does it similar to Aston Martin. I believe Aston Martin will be his final seat in Formula One, not because he's going to get fired. I mean, he might, but just because I think, the time has come for him to be in his last home. I mean, he's driven on basically every seat at this point.
Yeah. I forgot to mention one more thing, which...
Go for it.
Or maybe I did talk about it, actually. I'm sorry, my brain's blanking. Let me know if I didn't talk about it, or if I did already. I'm going to talk about Daniel Ricciardo for next year.
Yeah, we have not talked about it.
Okay, I was making sure, because I just completely forgot when talking about both Red Bull and McLaren. So Daniel Ricciardo is, I'm pretty sure 100% confirmed.
Yeah, he signed. Yeah.
Okay. And the last thing I saw was Horner saying he's not signed, but that's our intention.
Yeah, no, they posted on his thing and everything. He's
okay. I was making sure.
Yeah. Good call.
So Danny Rick is officially reserved or confirmed as the reserve driver for Red Bull, which blows my mind.
This is the biggest foot in the mouth moment I've ever seen.
Dude, it's crazy.
Leaves because he's afraid to not be the number one driver. Ends up the third driver.
Is now the number 3 driver.
But you know what?
Man.
I want to give him a lot of crap, but this is the best career decision Daniel Ricciardo has ever made.
Yes,
I'm just saying, because the other ones were terrible. Because he should have went to McLaren originally, and then he goes to McLaren. He should have never
left.
Well, he shouldn't have left. He should never have left. And then he goes to a bad team because he wants to be God. And then he goes, no, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of not winning. I'm going to go to McLaren and still not win. I'm kidding. Obviously, he's the only person that's delivered a race win. People forget about that. But, yeah, this season was just poor. I was rewatching Drive to Survive, last season's Drive to Survive, and I just forgot how badly he did at the beginning of last year, too.
Oh, yeah.
But, so... I'm excited to see him there. I feel like, if one of them gets sick, he's going to be in a Red Bull driving a race.
Oh, yeah, dude. Imagine if he wins.
Dude, if he wins in a Red Bull next season, I'm not buying merch, but I don't know. I bought my parents a lot of merch for Red Bull.
How about this? You got to drink a Red Bull.
All right, I'll drink a Red Bull.
We actually were talking about this.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about the Red Bull packs.
Nick sent me a video the other day of Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen on a Red Bull box, like a 4-pack of Red Bull cans.
A new one.
A new one. This isn't dated or anything. This is new.
Because it has this year's car on it, so it's not an old pack.
So obviously it's crazy because it's been a week.
They must have been planning. They must have known he was going to sign for a month.
That's fair.
Yeah,
but. So I did some investigating and could not find it at my local grocery store, but I did in fact find one with Max and Checo, and I did buy it, and it is now sitting behind me on my mantle.
I would have too. If I see it, I'll probably buy it.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the Lewis Hamilton Monster. It's like the 0 sugar purple can with his name on it, and we're gonna find. I don't think they make a specific like Formula One or Max or Checo can of Red Bull. But we're just going to get a pack of the F1 box Red Bull cans, and we're going to swap on the podcast, try them out, and rate the drinks.
Maybe we can get Kendra on, and she can drink the Daniel Ricciardo wine that he just put out.
Oh, that's right. Isn't it pretty cheap, too?
I think it's pretty cheap wine, yeah. And, I don't drink, but I feel like Kendra would be funny for it to try because she's kind of a wine. Oh, yeah.
We'll do that.
She's kind of a wine girl, so not really. She doesn't drink that much. But I just think it'd be funny.
And drink responsibly.
Drink responsibly. Yes. Yeah. Please. We're not telling you don't buy Daniel Ricciardo's wine. I mean, he does need the money, but no, I'm just kidding. I wonder what his contract is.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering as well.
Probably 1 year. I kind of want him to just linger. See, what they figured out immediately, and I think is really smart in his role, is they said that he's the third driver. They use the word third. I bet that was in his contract. He doesn't want the word reserve. I guarantee you that's in his contract. And then number 2 is they said he's going to be a marketing guy. So, all those places that Checo was going and driving around and doing extra stuff, Danny Rick is the perfect guy for this. He could do this the rest of his career. He could do this for like another 10 or 15 years.
Oh yeah, dude. He would he's got the personality to be a PR rep.
Oh yeah, he's perfect for this. This might be his perfect job. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I know he'll want to get back in a drive somewhere. And I believe it's over, but if for some reason there is still beef between Max and Checo, we're gonna find out real fast. So he could end up in a seat. I think we covered everybody except Alfa Romeo. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Tell me about Alfa Romeo's race.
Uneventful.
Good job. Good research. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Not just kidding. We had Bottas finishing P15, which I was kind of he just had a really bad weekend. I'm not gonna lie.
He had a bad season.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, but this race definitely reflected that. And Zhou ended up P12, so he's at least showing he can get a little higher. They renewed his contract as we talked about, so he's going to be there again. Excited to hopefully see him get some good points next year. Other than that, that was pretty much it for Alfa Romeo this week.
Some of the upcoming episodes that we're going to do, one of them that I actually haven't even told you about, but I think you're going to like this idea, is we're going to do an episode where we kind of cover every driver's career and how they got to their seat. I think that'll be a good episode to put out for everybody that are, new listeners, new watchers that for the beginning of next season, especially because, Drive to Survive covers everything that happened the year before, but there's a lot of stuff I don't know currently all of Nick DeVries's stuff or Piastri. There's a ton of stuff because I'm not that deep into F2. I did see, I'll say this, my TikTok is trying to get me into Formula E because people keep saying, hey, it's a winter sport. If you're missing racing, it starts sooner than F2. And I'm just kind of like, oh, no, don't do it. don't get
Nick's going to be into Formula E fan.
I literally almost watched an F2 race, and I found out there's an F2 race in England when I go, so I'm very excited for that. But not in Miami. There's nothing going on in Miami during that weekend, and that's the one I was hoping it would be because it's sooner in the season. But
yeah.
Anyway, who would you give your winner and loser to this race?
Ooh, winner Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
End of the season, ending on a good note with a P2. And then loser, probably going to be McLaren.
Yeah.
After a very rough season, they made it even worse, but Alpine just outperformed them and they ended below them. So they just did not have, they're going backwards, unlike they wanted to.
Agreed.
They're back where they were, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, it's a bad time for them. I'm going to give my winner to Ferrari overall, very similarly. I think P2 in the championship is admirable in both sports. Both competitions. I couldn't think of the word. Because I think, we can't expect a team rising up to beat Mercedes and compete with Red Bull at all from P3 last year is impressive. Leclerc's highest finish ever. Despite all their shortcomings this year, they even made a good decision to accept Bonato's resignation. I hope they make a good hire. I've been hearing Ross Brawn might be their CEO. I've been hearing that Franz Tost might be their CEO.
Yeah.
I don't know who they're going to pick as their team principal CEO, but it needs to be somebody good. It needs to be somebody reliable, and I don't know who that's going to be. So, whoever, what's the guy's name from Alfa Romeo? I'm blanking. I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm such a noob. I'm so sorry, guys. I totally forgot.
I know you're good.
His name is hard to pronounce too, so I always forget. Frederick Vasseur. Dang it! I could see his face.
Team principal?
Yeah, it's their team principal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've heard that he could be it too. He's a.
Really?
Yeah, he's French, but he is in the Ferrari system of sorts.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or bring somebody up that we don't know yet. I
don't know if Ferrari would do that.
Everybody is saying they want Vettel, and if Vettel, some reason, after all of this, 0% of me thinks he will because he's all.
No.
He keeps saying family and all this stuff, but I still think Audi should make.
If Vettel is going to be in Formula One, he's going to be racing.
I still think this Audi should try and talk him to coming back in 2026. But that's
I could see that.
Or be team principal. I mean, but he yeah. So who knows?
I don't know.
Did I say my loser? No, I didn't. I'm gonna say loser Mercedes. Humbly as a Mercedes fan, I have to say that between a mechanical DNF, penalties, there was every part of the team messed up a little bit, and it wasn't all the worst. I mean, a DNF is terrible, but just losing P2 in the championship, it's got to have an effect on something. Now, they get more wind tunnel time, but they get less money. I don't know if that matters to them. It might not. But also, this is really nitty-gritty, but Lewis Hamilton has been pulling to the first stop in the pit, or the last, wait, is it the first? It's the first, sorry. The first stop in the pit wall for years. And, you know, it's easy to miss. It's going to have some effect on him, right? And moving down 2 doors or 4 doors, you know, technically. So I think that could have some impact. They're not going to be top boss anymore. They're going to be a different place in the paddock. It's a mental thing. And are they going to rise up, or are they going to be 2015 Red Bull? You know, we don't know yet. Yeah. So we shall wait and see. So I think that's about it. Unless you have anything else, Dawson. No, you're good.
I do not. I don't think so. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you all for riding through this season with us. We have a lot more in store. We're probably going to end up, I haven't actually talked to Dawson about this, but we're probably going to end up not releasing any more episodes until the start of next year, though we do have some we have to record that I haven't told you about. But,
all right.
You say, okay, whatever you say.
Whatever you say, Nick.
Yeah, that's right. I am the boss here. No, I'm just kidding. Do you feel like, tell me this, you don't have to give me any like super like poetic answer, but this is your first full season that you've watched every race. How do you feel? Did you enjoy it?
I did. Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I don't know. Like I've never been, like I've always liked sports, but I've never been as invested as I have to this. Like obviously, we have Alabama football.
Roll Tide.
we are the down south football guys, okay? But still, like I would probably prefer to watch a race at this point.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Do you miss it yet? Because I already miss it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but like, okay, here's the thing. This is also my first year of following off-season drama, so I'm excited for that as well.
It's gonna get quiet here soon. Like in about a week or two, there's gonna be nothing. And then starting in like February, things are going to be like boom, 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 because all the teams are going to start like there'll be like a little bit of their car on Silverstone. You're like, oh, they look good. Yep. And then I can't wait for winter testing, because dude, I just need to see Mercedes do well. Every year Mercedes is always like we're on the back foot and no one believes them. But this year I was telling everybody I knew Mercedes is going to be bad. I'm telling you, just wait. And everybody was like, yeah, be quiet. And I was right. And it hurt, but it's over, maybe, or it's gonna continue. We'll find out. So I miss it. I need Drive to Survive to come out right now.
That's right.
Not in March when it's going to. So I cannot wait. But that's been it for this episode. Please share, like, subscribe, all that stuff at the Pitwall Pod, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye. It's lights out and away we go. Goodbye.